Time about how my best friend made my whole school hate me. So a little background information, I was 13 and in 8th grade, and so was my best friend, who we are going to call Layla. And we met at a birthday party of a mutual friend during that summer. And all three of us started to hang out every day. And then when school started back up, the trio fell apart. Because our other friend Alice went to a different school, so she couldn't really hang out with us as much. When we first started school, there was this boy that I met and I really liked him and we started dating. But Layla and I had our own little friend group. There were 5 of us. Then there was this girl named Ivy. She had 4 people in her group, and our friend groups did not like each other at all. There was maybe one person from both groups that hung out with the other group, but that was it. And the only reason why none of us were friends was because the main girls, like the leaders of the group, used to be best friends. But then Ivy went behind Layla's back and started talking to this boy that Layla liked, and that's literally why they're not friends anymore. Well, all of us in the friend group were friends, but I was Layla's best friend. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how my best friend made my whole school hate me. So like I said, we were all friends in the group, but I was Layla's best friend. So her and I would pretty much boss everybody else around. But one day Layla tells one of our friends, Nova, to go and listen to what Ivy and her friends were talking about during lunch, because Nova had friends who sat at the same lunch tables as them. Well, I guess Ivy was talking about how she was going to try to talk to every guy that Layla talked to just to make her mad. And that started a whole war. Layla and I have a sleepover that same night, and she's like, we should make an Instagram account and expose her. Now, Ivy was notorious for sending out explicit pictures to guys. Like, even if she didn't know them, she loved the attention from guys. So Layla told me that we were going to make a fake Snapchat account and try to get her to send pictures. I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of sad. She literally sent them within 5 minutes of Layla texting her pretending to be some guy. After that, we both made Instagram accounts that were named Exposing Ivy or something along those lines. And we made 2 accounts just so that way, if one got taken down, hopefully the other one would stay up. We posted the pictures on there and a lot of people saw them, like for part 3. Part 3 about how my best friend made my entire school hate me. So like I said, Ivy sent the pictures and everybody saw them. And I'm talking even the people in high school. The next day, Ivy and Layla are in the same science class together. And none of their friends were there that day, so they ended up working on a group assignment together. And just like that, they were best friends again. Well, I get thrown under the bus, the teachers come and pull me out of my class, and they search my phone, and they find the Instagram account on my phone. Then when I told them it was also on Layla's phone, they went on her phone, and they didn't find anything, of course. I get suspended, and Layla and Ivy tell everybody that I was the one who made the fake Snapchat account and the Instagram accounts. And the whole week that I was suspended, I was getting messages from a lot of people that I went to school with, and people that I didn't even know from high school. I was getting tagged in stuff on Instagram of people saying how much of a weirdo I am. Well, a few days into my suspension, Layla and Ivy talked my boyfriend into breaking up with me. They faked text messages between each other and made it look like I was talking to another guy. And then they faked another conversation between Layla and I, like for part 4. Part 4 about how my best friend made my entire school hate me. So like I said, Layla and Ivy talked my boyfriend into breaking up with me the week that I was suspended. They showed him fake text messages between me and some guy that doesn't even exist. And then they also faked a conversation between Layla and I, and it's me saying, OMG, this guy's so hot, I'm gonna leave my boyfriend for him. And I was getting called a cheater, and when I went back to school the next week on Monday, it was terrible. People would whisper and laugh at me when I was walking in the hallway. I would be in the bathroom and there would be girls talking about how weird and disgusting I was loud enough so I could hear them. Every lunch table that I sat at, Layla and Ivy would sit at the other end with all their friends and just talk about me the entire time. Well, after this situation, I finally decided that I was going to do online school for the next 2 months and then hopefully have a fresh start in high school. All the girls and I were changing in the locker room, and when we went to gym class, Ivy asked if she could go to the bathroom, which of course was in the locker room. After gym class, I get changed into my clothes, and all the girls start laughing at me when my teacher says, there's a hole in the back of your pants. And yes, I did try telling my teachers about this stuff that was going on, because we all should know by now schools are notorious for not doing it to help students that are being bullied.
This is the story time of the time that I made my mom think that I was seeing dead people. Yeah. Preface, I'm actually like a terrible daughter. Like, I've done so many terrible things to my mom. I stole her car. Like, I just have been a terrible daughter. Definitely made up for it because she lived with me and I helped get her off of the streets, and I love my mommy, so don't come at me. Excuse me, my nail just came off. What is that about? Why? Anyways, when I was like 11, I honestly started dealing with my OCD and realizing that like I might be a little bit different up here than other people. I was 11 and would go into like a literal meltdown if I didn't have my teddy bear and my blankie. Like actual meltdown, not like normal kid meltdown. I couldn't really put the word to it yet, and there wasn't really like a lot of education about mental health at that time, so I just kind of passed it off as like OCD, like I like to organize, like I like to sleep a certain way. Did I know it was like OCD, like you are actually. At the same time, I was starting to deal with some like intrusive thoughts, which is like totally normal with OCD. When you're a kid, intrusive thoughts are literally just like, you should go fart on their face, like you should go kick them, donkey kick them right now. At least that's what they were for me. I know some people are different, like everyone is different actually. Anyways, at this time I had this neighbor that I'd been neighbors with our whole lives. Like it had just so happened that we always moved right next to each other, which is so weird. We were both so poor, so we just ended up at the same apartment complexes every single trip, like literally. Any of my girly pops who grew up like in assistant living or like government assistance, like you know it takes a village to raise you. I swear to God, I had like 6 moms, and the lady that lived next to us was my best friend's mom, so she was like one of my moms at the time. Anyways, one day I watched this movie where this like little girl could talk to dead people, and I don't remember what the movie was called, but it was like this movie where she's like, I talk to dead people. For some reason that was just so funny to me. Like, it was a serious scene, but to me it was just like so funny. Like, what do you mean? I got it stuck in my head that like I wanted to do that to my mom, but I didn't know how she could like believe me. Like, mind you, I loved pranks at that time, like saran wrap the toilet. I was always Googling new pranks I could do on my mom and my stepdad. One day, me and my mom were just sitting in the living room and we're like silent. We're like watching TV, doing nothing, and I thought to myself, this is the perfect time. So I look at her and I say, out of nowhere, after silence, I say, Mommy, sometimes I hear things. I hear people talking. And she's like, what do you mean? Like, not really like rude like that. She's just like, what? And I was like, sometimes I hear people and I hear things that aren't there and I see things that aren't there. And my poor mother just looks at me and is like, oh, well, we might need to go to therapy then for that. And I'm like, yeah. Obviously, at that time, I didn't know what schizophrenia was, and I didn't know that that type of stuff ran in our family. I just thought Miss Girl was gonna think I saw dead people. But no, she was really worried about my mental health. So like 2 days later, I go over to my friend's house, and I'm talking to his mom, and me and her always caught up like we were girlies. I was like, OMG, I have to tell you about the prank that I pulled on my mom, and she's like, what did you do? I was like, I convinced her that I talked to dead people, and she's like, oh my God. Because your mother came over yesterday freaking out because she was so worried about your mental state and thinking that you might be losing it a little bit, and she's terrified. I was like, great, so she's not going to believe me when I tell her to prank. Part 2 of the story time of the time I convinced my mom that I was seeing and hearing dead people. Anyway, so at that point, I'm like, OMG, it's going to take so much convincing to, like, convince her that I'm not just embarrassed now. Like, if I tell her I was joking, she's not going to believe me. Also, I found it hilarious that, like, I knew she wasn't going to believe me, so I was like, should I just play into it, Jessica? Like, this is so funny. My mom's friend at the time was like, yeah, I'm going to tell her that you came over and, like, told me the same thing that she told me and, like, see what she does. Like, but I'm going to make sure she knows that you're meaning, like, you see dead people, not that you're, like, having mental health issues. By the way, if you're schizophrenic or have psychosis, I'm not judging you, babe. There's so many people in my family who have that. Like, I totally get it. At the time, I was 11 years old, and I thought it was so funny. My mom's friend tells her that I basically told her the exact same thing that I told my mother, and my mom is, like, scared at that point. Now my mom thinks that I see dead people and that I'm like kind of losing it, or maybe that I'm a psychic and that there's dead people in her house. I'm just eating it up because I'm a Gemini and I love to stir the pot. Like, we've gone over this. Basically, like, after I think it was like a week and a half, I was like, Mom, did you know that everything I said about seeing people was a lie? And my mom would just curse me out because she's like an older Italian lady, so you already know how that goes. Anyways, my mom's friend ended up backing me up, so my mom just was like, cool, you're great. It was actually the same lady to first ever tell me that I was good at makeup, so my entire career is thanks to her. Thanks, Jessica.
My mom died in 9/11, and the last thing she said to me was that she never wanted to see me again. It was September 10th, and we were getting ready to discuss how we were going to bury my grandfather, which was her father, who had passed away a week before this day. I was telling her that we should cremate him because that's what he said that he wanted, but she completely disagreed and wanted an open casket. She felt it would be better if everybody could see his face before putting him in the ground. I told her that if she disrespected his wishes, that I simply would not show up to the funeral. Then she goes on to say, how dare you not show up to your grandfather's funeral? He was all I had. And then the last thing she says to me is, why couldn't it have been you instead of him? And then I also say, well, why couldn't it have been you instead of him? Because he was like my best friend. She then says she never wants to see me again. And honestly, I didn't want to see her either. The next day comes and then we both go to work. Everyone gets sent home early for some reason, and so when I get home, I turn on the news. I then see the aftermath of the buildings collapsing, and the next day they announced everyone who had passed away in the building, including my mother.